Hello and welcome. Today we continue our epic family road trip series that we went on in the Christmas break of 2019 in our 2015 Tesla Model S with my young family of 5. If you're interested in seeing any of the prior videos that I've posted, I will put a card right here that will pop out so you can watch that playlist. Today is day 9 of our travel. It's a fairly uneventful day. We're not going a crazy far distance. We're going from Slidell, Louisiana to Temple, Texas, which is in the central part of Texas. The distances between superchargers on this route, however, were far enough apart that it required us to charge longer than it was usual, and one of the superchargers was especially slow, so we spent more charging on this day than usual. But let's get into it and I'll show you all of the details. All right, we're heading to breakfast. Are you excited, girls?
Yeah.
Your pants are on backwards. We're heading to breakfast.
Come here. One.
Do you like your waffles? Mm-hmm. Thanks for helping, girls. All right, we're done here in Slidell, Louisiana. We're heading, out to Central Texas today. All right, we're all loaded up in the car, ready to rock and roll. You can see here, this is our agenda for the day, going to Baton Rouge and all the way down until we get to Temple, Texas. And that is the route that we're going to be taking right there. And so we're expecting to get to our next stop at 29% battery, but we'll probably take some detours, and so that will be lower is the expectation. And for some reason we got this notice over here about autopilot not being available. Not really sure what's up with that. Hopefully it comes back on soon, and we're at 53 degrees. All right, let's get going.
And mark it with a B and throw it in the oven for baby and me.
That was great. Good job. What this is here is TeslaFi. TeslaFi is a service that you connect your car to through the API, and it will give you all kinds of information about your car. And so you can see up here we drove for just a couple of minutes from the hotel, and then we pulled over to do something with the kids. And then down here is the actual drive that we did there from Slidell to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and that was an hour and 14 minutes, and we drove 91 miles, and we drove at 74.7% efficiency, and you can see the external temperature was 52 degrees, and this was us driving at about 80 miles an hour the whole time. All right, we just arrived at the Baton Rouge, Louisiana Supercharger. You can see in my car behind me charging there. The superchargers are in the back corner of this shopping mall, which is great for not getting ice, but really far back here. We had to drive through a lot of parking lot to get here, it seems like. So unfortunately, my car's autopilot function has not been working for the last about hour and a half driving since we left Slidell, Louisiana. So I know, first world problems, but I've been having to drive completely manually for the last hour and a half, and I really, really appreciate autopilot more now, I guess, having gone without it. Having to constantly monitor the speed of the car and adjust for terrain and traffic and all of that. Man, autopilot is amazing. Love it. All right, the charge rate is 76 kilowatts, and we're at 30% battery, so I guess that's about what we've been experiencing on this trip. So it is estimating 35 more minutes before we'll depart and then head to Lake Charles, Louisiana. And it's currently 55 degrees outside. All right, Lydia, what do you think? You having fun?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you want to go into this mall for a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do it. Oh, one thing I would also add is that we decided not to go into New Orleans. We just decided to add it on extra time. We didn't really care enough to go there, so we just came here. So you'll notice that when I left the supercharger last night in Slidell, that it was estimating that we would get here to Baton Rouge at 30%, and it got here at 29%. So 1% difference even with it sitting overnight. So I think that was pretty excellent estimation. That was also with it departing from that Supercharger and coming straight here and not going back to our hotel. So anyway, that estimate was pretty accurate and had very little range loss overnight. So we're going to now head into the mall here and get the kids running around. And right now they're exploring this mound from, looks like it's an anthill. The girls found this Petco store that has a big old cat and they wanted to get a picture with it.
Stand by it.
Okay, everyone.
All right, let's take your picture. Smile. All right, let's go into this Trader Joe's over here. We're heading back to the car. You can see down here that the app is saying that we're at 70% and is estimating 10 minutes. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's saying 10 minutes to continue on your trip, and it's down to 40 kilowatts. You gotta keep them active between the legs of the journey. We've gotten a few bugs built up, but far fewer than would have built up in the summertime. Oh, let's check and see if autopilot is still disabled. Hey, look, it is saying autopilot, or it is no longer saying autopilot is disabled. Excellent. I am so excited. Driving without autopilot was the worst, and first world problems, like I said before, but seriously, it is amazing. Without it, makes you really appreciate it, like many other things in life. So profound. Okay, we're gonna get back on the road here in a couple of minutes and we'll continue on our way. We are up to 86% battery, which was longer than we intended, but we decided to put on a movie for the kids, and we're still experimenting with how much energy that takes up. So right now it's estimating that we will arrive at Lake Charles with 20%, giving us a healthy safety margin. And you can see here we're at 55 degrees outside, and you can see this is our computer monitor set up with some suction cups connected to the ceiling, and then we have the power going to a inverter right here, and and then also DVI cable is going through a adapter to go to USB-C on my phone, and we can plug it into Jessica's phone as well. So you can see out here, this is what it looks like. You can see from the back area here, that's what it looks like for the girls. It's a 20-inch monitor, and you can see the gap there allows for me to see out the back window. Come up this way. When I'm sitting in the driver's seat looking out the rearview mirror, it allows me to see out the back because of that groove that I cut in the piece of metal. So we're gonna go ahead and get unplugged and get on the road.
Don't get any ideas.
Testify shows that we were charging for a total of 55 minutes, and the car had originally estimated that we would only need 35 minutes of charging. And the reason why we charged for longer and got up to an estimated arrival percentage of 20% is because of showing a movie, and we weren't totally sure how much energy that monitor would consume. So in any case, in that 55 minutes, we went from 30% to 87%, which is definitely not the ideal charging range to do. Normally we would have plugged in at 10% or maybe even slightly less than that, and then gone up from there, and would have stopped around 60% or something like that, because that's when the charge rate is the fastest, when the battery is nearly empty. We're going over this giant bridge departing out of Baton Rouge on Highway 10 West, or Interstate 10 West rather. You can see the water out that way, and out this way. Approaching Lake Charles, Louisiana. Up here, that's the Supercharger. We're going to be getting there in 3 minutes. You can see that we're arriving with 21% battery. So this leg of the journey was an experiment because we had the computer monitor on behind me, as you can see there. We had that on the entire trip from Baton Rouge, Louisiana until Lake Charles here. I don't remember how long that was, but we'll say roughly 2 hours of driving. And the monitor was on the entire time, and the battery was not affected. In fact, it's 1% higher than it was estimated to be upon arrival when we left Baton Rouge. So I would say that the tests we had done earlier in this trip were basically non-conclusive. Those were caused because of the mountainous terrain, it would seem, and that the monitor doesn't cause any problems. So that's great. Looking at the Testify data for that segment of drive from Baton Rouge, Louisiana to Lake Charles, Louisiana, it was an hour and 47 minutes of driving, 133, almost 34 miles of driving, and we drove at 78.6% efficiency. That's with an outside temperature of 59 degrees, which is really not bad at all. And it shows over here the average speed was 75 miles per hour. All right, we're plugged in here at the Lake Charles, Louisiana Supercharger, and this is in the parking lot of a strip mall here. A couple of different establishments. We're probably going to go exploring for a bit and get some lunch to eat. The girls are just finishing up watching a movie right now. Hey girls. Lucy,
Huh?
What did you think of your movie?
Great.
Do you like this screen? Of course you do.
And the mean one set of fire.
Oh, yeah, they're watching Lion King. Alright, let's see how the charge rate is going. Alright, we're at 23% and 90 kilowatts. I'm guessing it was just slightly higher than that a second ago.
Just a minute, yeah.
And it's estimating 50 minutes. One thing I noticed about this trip today is if we bring up the superchargers, you can see there are not very many superchargers on the route that we are taking, because we started over here and we had to charge a lot at the Baton Rouge supercharger, and then there was nothing in between, so that's why we had to charge that long. And then here in Lake Charles, there's also no superchargers in between until we get over here into the Houston area, of which there's several. We'll be stopping here at this supercharger, and then after that, we are going on to our destination up here, and there's no superchargers along the route there either. So today, we're only stopping actually 3 times, but each time we're stopping, we have to stop for longer than what we would typically do. It looks like they're going to be around 50 minutes per stop in this case. So yeah, today 50 minutes, and then we'll continue on our way. We went exploring some stores, and now we're going to head back to the car. It claims to only need a couple of more minutes of charging, so we should be able to just unplug and go as soon as the car is done. Overall, I would say that this stop is a pretty good one, actually. Lots of amenities in the immediate surroundings, and food options as well as shopping. All right, we have a 90% battery. We're down to 17 kilowatt charge rate, which is extremely low. And you can see over here, it is estimating that we will arrive at the Houston Supercharger at 10%, which is what we're looking for. And it's currently 61 degrees. The Lake Charles Supercharger we were at for an hour and 6 minutes, which is far longer than is normal for us. Usually we plug in at closer to 10% and unplug closer to around 65%. It's just that the Supercharger distance between Houston and Lake Charles is significant enough that for our battery we needed to get up to 90% to be able to go that distance and still have a 10% buffer, so we had to charge there for an extra amount of time. Luckily for us, there was that strip mall there, and so there was plenty to go look at and explore, and we ate lunch while we were there. Here's a cool bridge we're just beginning to cross. You see that bridge, girls? Looking at Teslafy, you can see that drive from Lake Charles to Houston was 2 hours and 15 minutes of driving, and we drove for 157 miles at 84.6% efficiency. The outside temperature was 62 degrees and our average speed was 69 miles per hour. All right, we just arrived at the Supercharger in Houston. This one's called the Northwest Freeway Houston Supercharger. We just barely plugged in and the charge rate is abysmal at 11 kilowatts and it has not increased from there. So, I guess maybe, nope, it is struggling. So we'll give it a second to try to figure this out and then we may be moving to another spot. I'm gonna go see what our other options are. You can see here it says high usage supercharger location, adjusting to 80%, which we can obviously move. Okay, look, it's getting up there now. Okay, so that's better. It's improving. So anyway, we're going to be charging here for nearly an hour because where we're going from here has no superchargers, so we have to get to our destination with this charge. And so it's going to be a bit. So we're going to go explore and see what's around here. So this is unusual. All of the other supercharger locations that I've seen, these cabinets here where the inverters are usually hidden behind like wooden fences or paneling or something. And in this location they're not, so we can see them better. Also, what's a little unusual is that there are 2 supercharger stalls over here, and then over here on this side there are 6. I don't usually see them split up like that. So the car only got up to 58 kilowatts. It's not doing well. It looks like the other people recognize that this location is not doing well either. So I didn't really bother to move. The other available spots are all shared anyway. And what I'm on right now is not shared, so it probably is not going to be much better. So we're going to be here for a little while. We're just going to go explore the area. And you can see the kids are already taking advantage of the opportunity to run around, so that's good. Get a good hour of running around in, and then we're going to get back on the road and we'll get to our destination tonight by about 7:30 p.m. at this point. We're at the gas station that is right in front of the Supercharger, and it is a restaurant as well, Rudy's. So we thought we'd go in here and check out some Texas barbecue. Lucy, what did we get? A brisket sandwich?
A brisket sandwich.
Right. We just ate some at our last Supercharger stop, so we're not terribly hungry. So we cut it up in little pieces, and we're trying it out. What do you think, Clara? You like it? Yeah. Clara, smile. Oh, that is so cute. They have cool decorations in this place. We're done having some Texas barbecue, and it was good. How did you like the barbecue?
It was yummy.
It was fine. Lucy didn't like it because she doesn't like spicy things, and the brisket has a lot of seasoning on the outside that she didn't like. So she ended up with mostly just eating potato salad. All right. Here's the Superchargers behind this joint. and it looks like several people have left, which I don't blame them because the charge rate has been fluctuating between 10 and 54 kilowatts for the last half an hour. So I'm going to go try moving to another spot, see if we can maybe get more consistency. I don't really know if it's just ours, but I think that it was probably everyone. So let's go change spots. Actually, let's check real quick. So looking at my phone here you can see on the app that we're at 44 kilowatts, 55%, 25 minutes remaining. So not ideal. I'm going to try moving over here to these two spots because it looks like those people have left. We've moved over to another supercharger stall. And it was down in the high 30s when I unplugged. So this one's definitely performing much better, 59. And now dropping down again. 55 is actually pretty fine because that's about as high as the other one got, and considering we're at 56% battery, I think that's about what this car would get. Really what I'm more concerned about is just that it doesn't keep dropping down to 10 kilowatts and then ramping back up repeatedly, because that's obviously going to slow us down a lot, and it has already. We were planning on getting on the road by now so that we could get to our destination by 7:30, and that does not look like it's going to happen. Right now it's estimating that we'll get to our destination with -5%. So we need to get it up at least another 15% before this is probably going to be good enough to depart. So right now is a good example of where I think for now I would prefer to just be on the road rather than sitting here charging. We've kind of explored this area. The car still probably has another 20 minutes left. The car itself is estimating 25 minutes, so yeah. Girls, what did you find?
We lost it.
What did you lose?
A roly-poly.
You had a roly-poly?
Yeah, but then I dropped it. No, it's underground.
It's on the ground?
No, underground.
Underground? It went under the grass?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, Lucy.
well, we're going to be ready to leave soon.
Oh,
Maybe you can still find your roly-poly.
no.
No? Yeah.
One in the park.
Yeah, I don't see it either. It probably ran away.
One in the
We're down to 28 kilowatts. It says 30 minutes remaining to get to 100%, but we're full enough. We are to 10% to get to our destination. It is now just past 6 o'clock and it's 59 degrees outside. So we're gonna unplug and get out of here because we've already been here for longer than we should have been. That Houston Supercharger stop has two different segments here in Tesla-Fi. We had plugged in initially for an hour, and as I mentioned earlier, the speed of charging, the kilowatts rate, was changing dramatically pretty regularly. And we started at 19% on the battery, and then I unplugged to 56% and moved over to a different supercharger parking spot to see if we could get a better charge rate. And we maybe did get a little bit better charge rate, but it really was not great still. And we were in that second parking spot for another 32 minutes, and we ended at 84% before unplugging and continuing on our way. So this is definitely an example of a less than ideal supercharger stop. The previous one was pretty long as well. The supercharger distances on this particular day were pretty far apart, so we had to charge longer than is usual. And with this one, with the charge rates fluctuating and on average being fairly low, an hour and a half charging was what we had to do. This is very abnormal. We arrived with 19%, which is higher than we normally arrive with, and we needed to get to a little bit abnormally higher charge rate than usual, or sorry, charge percentage. And then we had the slow charge rate. So the combination of all of those meant for a really long charge stop. Don't plan on it always being like this though. All right, we're pulling into our destination here at 4% battery, so we did have some range loss for sure. It's 49 degrees outside, and rated miles we have remaining is 11. That driving segment from Houston, Texas to our destination in Temple, Texas has two different segments here. We stopped in Cameron, Texas along the way to pick up something at a store, and so that was an hour and 48 minutes of driving and 124 miles, and we drove at almost 75% efficiency. And then down here, this is the drive from Cameron to Temple, Texas, and that's only 28 minutes and almost 30 miles of driving and 75% efficiency on that segment as well. Okay, so we have arrived, and just for fun, I thought I would plug it in with the NEMA 515 outlet. You can see here that we have 11 miles of range, or it's actually at 4% is what that's at. And I plugged it in. You can see it's getting 3 miles per hour, although I've noticed that when you turn off, or when you leave the car and everything shuts down, it goes to 4 miles per hour. And we've gotten 1 mile so far, so it's been plugged in for just a little bit. And so here shortly we're going to be plugging it into a NEMA 1430 outlet, I believe. We just have to wait for their dryer to finish a load, and then we'll get it plugged in. But yeah, if I come over here and change this to the display and to energy, we will see that it is at 4% battery. So it would take a very long time, to the point that it hasn't even finished calculating, and it doesn't seem to be willing to calculate how long it's going to take to charge to 100% with this speed. This is a 1 kilowatt speed of charge right now. And like I said, once the car shuts down, it probably will go closer to the 1.2 kilowatts. Right now there's a little bit of loss due to the car being on. So anyway, I'm going to go in. We'll visit with our friends. This trip was lots of driving on backcountry roads in rural Texas, between Houston and here. We had about 6% range loss from the estimation that the car was estimating when we left the Supercharger. I don't know entirely what to attribute that to. It did get a little bit colder over that time frame, but right now it's only 65 degrees. Oh, you know what? Actually, it's warming up because we were in their garage. It was down closer to 49, I think it was. In any case, it's gotten colder. And also, I've noticed that the Tesla estimation is not quite as accurate when you're going through super hilly terrain or mountainous terrain. It's still not terrible, but it varies a little bit more as you're driving. And so I was generally going at about 70 to 60 miles per hour. We passed through a number of small towns where you have to slow down for just a short period of time, and then you can speed back up. But overall, I would say it was totally successfully, this leg of the trip, I wasn't concerned about the range. I could see it slowly dropping a little bit, and I adjusted my driving just a little bit. Didn't go quite as fast, but I didn't really want to go too much faster anyway because of the rural highway roads we were on, and it was nighttime. So it didn't cramp my style at all. Oh, look at that. We've gone up 1%. So after being plugged in for just a little bit, we went up 1%. But yeah, it's going to take quite some time. I'll give you an update when I come back out and plug this into the NEMA 1430 outlet to show you the difference of how much faster that charges. In Tesla, you can see that we were charged in for a total of 35 minutes there with the standard household outlet, which is 120 volts and 15 amps, and it only got us up 1% on the battery. They're notoriously slow because, well, it's just not very much energy compared to what the car needs. We were actually consuming 0.9 kilowatt hours, and it only added 0.53 kilowatt hours to the battery, and that's charging at 59.9% efficiency. And I don't know all the details behind that, but basically when you have the higher voltage and higher amperage, cars will charge more efficiently, and this did not charge very efficiently. To compare it, you can see directly below it right here, we have the NEMA 1430 outlet that we then plugged into, which was charging at 24 amps and 240 volts, and that charged at 92.2% efficiency. All right, we are plugged in now with the NEMA 1430 plug. So as you can see down here, I manually adjusted the amperage to 24 amps because this is a 30 amp circuit. I went and checked the circuit breaker and verified that it's 30. So you can see up here the voltage sagged just a little bit. It was at 246 initially, now it's 243/244 and 24 amps, and so it's charging at 6 kilowatts. 6 kilowatts translates to 18 miles per hour. And we are now up to 5% battery because it was plugged in just for an hour or so with the NEMA 515, the 15 amp circuit, 120 volts. So now it's estimating 13 and a half hours to fully charge the battery. Now that being said, I don't need it fully charged for what we're planning on doing tomorrow. I don't want it to be sitting fully charged for too long. or at all in this case. So I'm going to adjust it to 90% charge, and it's now going to recalculate the estimated time to 12 hours. So right now it is 9:30 p.m. and that's Central Time, and so it'll be done by 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. And with that, I would say this is a good example use case of when you're on a road trip and you go visit friends or family, and whether or not they are close to superchargers doesn't really matter. It's more convenient to charge at their house. Actually, let me get out of the car and show you what I set up here. But what I was going to say is this is a good use case of what is possible, and in this case, it was totally doable to plug in the car in the driveway because I have my extension cord plugged in. But they said, hey, go ahead and just plug in the garage. So it doesn't really matter to me. So if you look over here, you can see, I don't know, it's pretty dark, but you can see we're plugged in and charging. And this is the cord just coming along the ground. Probably can't see very well. All right, let's get over here into the light. And so this is the mobile connector right here. And then we've got the extension cord that you're probably already familiar with by now. That is my NEMA 1450 extension cord that is 30 feet long. And that's just kind of lumped up here on the ground because we didn't really need that full length. And then it's going through a doorway right here. And then just inside the door here is the washer and dryer, and that's where the outlet is plugged in. So it's working quite well. And luckily we have people that are willing to humor us and let us plug in at their house. And in this particular location, it would have been a bit more difficult to make the charging work with just superchargers. We would have had to take a slightly different route, spend more time charging completely full to be able to get here and then go back south again to the next supercharger along our way. So this, being able to charge here, saved us a good amount of time and is just more convenient in general, of course. Looking in Teslafy at that last charge of the day, it charged for nearly 12 hours and got us to 90% from 5%. Now here you can see it says that it consumed 69.2 kilowatt hours from the home that we were plugged into, but it only actually added 63.81 kilowatt hours into the battery because there are always some charging inefficiencies, and this was charging at 92.2% efficiency. Now if we look down here at the entire day, this was our whole route. You can see over here we started in Slidell, Louisiana, and went west on Interstate 12, and then went on Interstate 10 down through Houston, and then swung up here into Temple, Texas. It really was not a terribly long day. In fact, if we go up here and look at the global stats for the day, we drove a total of 536 miles, which used up 684 rated miles, which, keep in mind, for our car, which is a 2015 Model S 85D, it's rated to consume 300 watt hours per mile, and we were driving at 78% efficiency, so that's why this number is larger than this number. But we drove for a total of 7 hours and 36 miles and used up 205 kilowatt hours throughout the day, and that is its average watt hours per mile of 382. So quite a bit higher than that average of 300 that it's rated to consume. But going at freeway speeds, 80 miles an hour, I found that's pretty typical that it'll be around 350 watt hours per mile. And then the total cost of all that energy used would have been $22.36 if we had paid for the electricity. That number is based off the cost of the retail rate of electricity in Utah, so not quite accurate, and so just keep that in mind. Total gas savings is saying what it would have cost with gasoline, which is rated for a 25 miles per gallon car and going that same distance. And then here, and the price per gallon would have, I think, been $2.50 a gallon is what I set this to. And then the average temp was 56 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the day. Now looking at the supercharger session information, we charged a total of 144 kilowatt hours added into the battery. And then the rated miles added is 486. Total savings, if we had paid for it, it would have cost us well, we would have paid more than this, but we would have saved $15 versus using gasoline, and the total time charging was 3.5 hours. These travel charges down here are the charges that I did at our friend's house in the evening. And so we added a total of 64 kilowatt hours, 221 rated miles, and then total time charging was 12 hours and 25 minutes. So the majority of that was on a 24 amp charge rate at 244 volts. I hope that was helpful for you to see all of the details of how well the car performed and how it worked with our family. On this particular day, as I've mentioned, the charging took a lot longer than was necessary, but luckily we were able to take advantage of that time to just play around and let the kids not be in their car seats. And so it was a little bit more of a leisurely day of travel, forcibly, potentially because of the longer charging. But overall, it wasn't bad, and we still got there and it still was free. So I'm willing to put up with more inconvenience because we're not paying for it. Driving the car is still a wonder. It's so much fun to drive and so comfortable. The first leg of this trip with autopilot being out of commission for some reason was definitely annoying. And in this case, I forgot to mention it in the video, but like not even the traffic aware cruise control would turn on, which in a normal car would just be basic cruise control that you just turn on and it keeps your speed. Even that wasn't working. So I had to completely manually drive the car with manual gas pedal or accelerator and brake pedal, as well as steering, which, you know, is just manually driving a car. It's not that big a deal, but when you're doing it for many hours, or in this case, an hour and a half, and you're used to being able to just get on the freeway and just put it in autopilot and it just follows the road for you, it's a lot more inconvenient. In any case, if you'd like to see any additional videos like this one, feel free to subscribe, and I'll be posting a couple of more videos as we continue on our journey back home. Thanks for watching and have a great day.